Welcome, everyone, to this week's Big 12 preview and predictions. We're in week 9 of the Big 12 season, and we got a big boy this week. Oklahoma State welcomes Texas in the conference's marquee matchup this week. We'll also look at the Red Raiders game Saturday afternoon against the Kansas Jayhawks at Jones AT&T Stadium. But first, we're going to look at some of the other games in the conference. We'll start with Nebraska 4-3 at Baylor 3-4, and oh, how things are unhappy in Lincoln Land. The Cornhuskers drop a 9-7 decision to Iowa State last Saturday, where quite frankly their offense was absolutely brutal. 8 turnovers, any mistake they could find a way to make, they did so. Cody Green, we never saw him in the game. Zach Lee, it wasn't that he was horrible, it was the fact that they could not finish drives in the red zone. A lot of fumbles, he threw interceptions, and ultimately cost them that game. Bo Pelini not letting on this week as to there's going to be any change at quarterback for Nebraska, but I can promise you, if the offense sputters at Baylor, they're going to get a look at Cody Green, because if that's what it takes to give that offense a little bit of spark, they're going to have to find a way to do it, because they have to find consistency either way. But ultimately, Nebraska's defense, we know they're extremely good. They've got a very powerful up front line. They're more than good enough to keep a very limited offensive Baylor team at bay. Without Robert Griffin, they continue to struggle. They were limited to 43 yards rushing last week in a loss to Oklahoma State. And let's be honest, with the Bears' struggling offense, their subpar defense the last few weeks, Nebraska must win this game. Find out what needs to be done offensively to get that team rolling, get rid of the turnovers. If they don't win this game, prepare for a ton of outrage that Bo Pelini does not want to deal with. That's why I think ultimately he motivates his team this week, and they roll over Baylor in Waco. Next game on our list, the Missouri Tigers visit the Colorado Buffaloes. Both teams not exactly a pleasant last week in Big 12 Conference play. Missouri obviously shut down by Texas in an easy win for the Longhorns. Colorado goes to Kansas State with a chance to stay on pace in the Big 12 North Conference, loses a 20-6 game to Kansas State where they could not contain K-State's rushing attack and Daniel Thomas. On the other side of the line for the Missouri Tigers, Blaine Gabbert, their quarterback, harassed again. Constant defensive pressure. Texas knocked him out of this game in the second half with a bad ankle. He was limited to 84 yards passing when he was in the game. It's a very simple formula so far, folks. If Blaine Gabbert's pressured, Missouri cannot win. They have not proven it yet. And for Colorado, their quarterback situation maybe not even as pleasant as that. They continue their quarterback derby system, rotating Tyler Hansen and Cody Hawkins after their coach Dan Hawkins supplanted his son and put Hansen in. Last week it was very quickly. They switched him back out. Hawkins ended up throwing 2 interceptions. Let's be honest with ourselves. Colorado must find offensive consistency, and I think the way they do it, they have to stick with one quarterback. The constant rotation gives no flow and no symmetry to the offense. The running game can't get going, and wide receivers are dealing with 2 different people throwing to them throughout the whole game. Hawkins needs to settle in on one target and give this team a chance to win some football games to finish out their schedule, because right now, other than the win over KU 2 weeks ago, there's a lot of struggles ahead on their schedule for the Buffaloes. Colorado must find a way to pressure Blaine Gabbert. That's the only way they're going to win this game. If they pressure him and force mistakes, their offense is talented enough with their running backs to find a way to score. If not, Missouri has the weapons to win, and I think that's going to be the key here. I think Blaine Gabbert's going to rebound a little bit from his bad performances the last few weeks, and I think Missouri's running game is going to get going a little bit better, and Colorado is going to continue to struggle with their 2-quarterback system. I think Missouri wins this one in Boulder. Next game on our list, Iowa State 5-3 visits Texas A&M, and for the Aggies, their Jekyll and Hyde season continues. Who knows what the hell team we're going to see Saturday? I can't predict them, nor am I going to try to. They go to Kansas State, get embarrassed by the Wildcats, and follow it up by coming to Lubbock last Saturday and ripping Texas Tech 52-30. Your guess is as good as mine as to which team's going to show up Saturday in College Station. Their running attack was superb against Tech. Gerard Johnson, Cyrus Gay, Christian Michael, 321 yards on the ground. Iowa State, on the other hand, goes to Nebraska and beats the Cornhuskers 9-7 without their starting quarterback Arnaud and their starting running back Robinson. Defense showed toughness, but can they contain A&M? If that rushing attack is as potent as it was against Tech last Saturday in Lubbock, I think it's going to be very tough for Iowa State to win this game. The key will be is if A&M can continue that momentum. Not get a big head, not get distracted by anything, continue to do the things that they did last week in Lubbock. That's going to be the key in this game. Here's the one thing to watch for, though. Iowa State, you saw the record, 5-3. They're playing for bowl eligibility, which would be one hell of an accomplishment for Paul Rhodes in his first year with the Cyclones. And if you think they don't know that, you're nuts. They're going to play hard. They're going to play very well, because that is a hell of an accomplishment if they can win that game and qualify for a bowl in his first year. Ultimately, I think the running game for A&M, I'm going to go ahead and put a little faith in them, which I know is probably the kiss of death, but I think their running game is going to continue that momentum we saw last week against Texas Tech. Going to be very hard for Iowa State to match them offensively, and I think A&M gets a little two-game winning streak going here and beats Iowa State in College Station. Kansas State visits Oklahoma, and yes, folks, the Happy Wildcats still leading the Big 12 North, and they're going to still lead it after this week regardless of what happens because of their start so far in conference play. This team controls their own fate in the North. They finished their season with Kansas, Missouri, and Nebraska. That's a stout schedule, but if they win out, they win the North, and Snyder has done one heck of a coaching job again. Daniel Thomas is the key to that Kansas State offense. The running back continues to produce, has rebounded from a poor game at Tech a few weeks ago, and has continued to cause opposing defenses a lot of problems. This week, however, he's got one heck of a task in front of him. Oklahoma's defense has been absolutely outstanding over the last few games. Can he produce against a very stout defense? Last week, Oklahoma shut down KU, harassed Todd Reesing, got 3 interceptions off that, turned that into points. Offensively for Oklahoma, well documented, we now know Sam Bradford officially done, going to have surgery this week. Into the NFL draft in April, he's done. Kevin Wilson now, the offensive coordinator for Oklahoma, is going to have to let Landry Jones grow up. He's going to have to stop being so conservative early in the game, or good teams with offenses are going to match OU's scoring and cause them problems. Jones is a very capable quarterback. Wilson needs to let him loose. Throw down the field a little bit, put pressure on opposing defenses, and see how good this kid actually really is. K-State, on the other hand, they must harass Landry Jones. That is their key in this game. Their defense has done a nice job of it. Last week, they caused Colorado a bunch of problems by keeping pressure on their 2 quarterbacks. If they put pressure on Landry Jones and they force mistakes, they're going to stay in this game and have a chance to win. The key is going to be if they can diversify their offense. Grant Gregory, their quarterback, did a nice job last week, but he only produced 80 yards through the air. I think they're going to have more than that if they try to rely purely on Daniel Thomas. Oklahoma's defense is too good, and they're going to shut Kansas State down. And I think ultimately, in the end, that's the key for me in this game. OU's defense continues to grow, continues to get stronger. I think they're going to be too much, and I think K-State's offense is going to not be able to quite diversify to score with OU, and I think Oklahoma wins this one in Norman. Second to last game we're going to look at here, the big one we talked about at the start of the show, 7-0, number 3 ranked Texas visits Oklahoma State at 6-1 in a huge marquee matchup in the Big 12 Conference. This is a big one for Texas, quite possibly their last hurdle en route to a BCS National Championship game. They got some other games left, but this one is the one they've had circled. A scary environment, no pun intended, on Halloween night in Stillwater. This is the chance Oklahoma State and Mike Gundy have been waiting for. This year was supposed to be a marquee year for them. They got a little bit of deflation in that loss to Houston, but they've quietly done extremely well since then. They're sitting there at 6-1, and they've put themselves in a position to win the Big 12 South if they can get a big win over Texas this Saturday. Colt McCoy, the Texas quarterback, he looked outstanding last week at Missouri. 26-31, 269 yards, 3 touchdowns. That's the McCoy that Texas has expected to see all season. That's a lot of momentum he built. Can he continue that this Saturday in Stillwater? The Texas defense, staying as solid as ever, harassed the hell out of Blaine Gabbert last week, knocked him out of the game with a hurt ankle. They never let Missouri have a chance in that game, and I think ultimately they're going to be the key Saturday. Can they contain Oklahoma State's offense? The key for the Cowboys is you have to realize they've suffered injuries much like a lot of other teams in the Big 12 Conference have this year. They don't have their running back. They've lost Des Bryant to a suspension, but they've found new weapons. Totson has filled in beautifully at running back. They've got a good second option in Bo Johnson. Last week, Zach Robinson, the quarterback for Oklahoma State, hit 3 different receivers for touchdowns. They haven't complained. They haven't whined a lot. They've just found new weapons to score and stayed productive. Robinson having a caliber of season that could put him as an all-conference quarterback in the Big 12 this season. This is the most balanced offense Texas is going to face this year. They're almost dead even, Oklahoma State is, in yardage every game between the run and the pass. Totson and Robinson are the key to that. They do a nice job of feeding off of each other, and Oklahoma State's going to put pressure on this Texas defense from both directions, and I think that's very key. Defensively for Oklahoma State, Bill Young's defense has matured. They've gotten better every week. They've been looking for a statement game since that loss to Houston. Here's your chance against the Texas Longhorn. Over the last few years, Oklahoma State, you've seen them play extremely well against Texas. Get off the big leagues, but they have not been able to nail the coffin in and finish the game off. There is an improved defense in Oklahoma State. I think they have a very balanced offense that's going to cause Texas some problems. I think it's going to be a close game, but I'm going to call an upset right now. Oklahoma State uses an offensive bounce. They upset Texas in Stillwater. Last game we're going to look at, the Texas Tech Red Raiders. They host the Kansas Jayhawks, 2:30 on ABC Saturday from Jones AT&T Stadium. Not a pleasant last Saturday for either of these teams. Texas Tech obviously jackhammered by A&M. KU shut down by Oklahoma. Their offense has sputtered severely over their last two games. They're riding a two-game losing streak. We're going to see if one of these teams' fans ends up wearing grocery bag faces for a Halloween costume Saturday night. Hopefully, in the case of Texas Tech, they don't end up with that. Tech, the drama at quarterback continues now with a new actor, Seth Deggy. Taylor Potts gets a start last week in place of an injured Stephen Sheffield. Struggles at times, has turnovers, yanked by head coach Mike Leach. Seth Deggy gets a chance, performs admirably, but at that point they're so far down on the scoreboard, he couldn't really do much. Who we'll see this week, your guess is as good as mine. Intuition tells me you're going to see Seth Deggy, the freshman, get a chance to prove himself against a suspect KU defense. But let's be honest with ourselves. Offensively, we're not even going to worry about it because if Tech's defense gets ripped for 559 yards again, it isn't going to matter. Mark Mangino and the Kansas offense are extremely equipped. They are, in ways, better than A&M. A&M had a nice rushing attack last week. KU, on the other hand, is more balanced. They've struggled the last 2 weeks, but they have two very capable running backs in Tobin O'Purum and Jake Sharp. You know their quarterback, Todd Reesing, a consistent leader over the last few years. He's got two very good wide receivers in Desmond Briscoe, Kerry Meyer, both big play potential. Texas Tech must not allow Kansas's running game to get going. If Tobin O'Purum and Jake Sharp get a little bit of a rushing game going, much like A&M did against Tech last week, it's going to be more of a consequence for the Red Raiders. Here's why. They are better at the passing game than A&M. Reesing, you know what he can do. He has two big play receivers in Briscoe and Meyer. He'll go deep down the field, and it will cost Texas Tech. And until we know how their offense is going to perform this week, that could be absolutely huge for the Red Raiders. KU defense, not such good news for the Jayhawks. They've been drilled for 669 yards and 69 points over their last two losses. Texas Tech has to do the things that they've been taught to do under Mike Leach's system. Seth Deggy or Taylor Potts, whoever it may be, need to do the things they do as a quarterback and score points. This defense is extremely suspect, and they cannot have a subpar performance against the Jayhawks. We might see the scoreboard lights break at Jones AT&T Stadium this week if these two defenses don't show a little bit of improvement over what they've done. Here's the key for me. The Tech's defense has to improve. They cannot let this game get into an offensive shootout because if that happens, the edge is going to go to KU. The reason for that, better offensive equipment. With Tech's questions at quarterback, I think that's going to give the edge to the Jayhawks. Reesing, Meyer, and Briscoe have the capability of punishing you on a big play, and ultimately, based on what we saw last week with Tech's defense, I think that's what it's going to come down to. I think KU comes to Lubbock Saturday and beats Texas Tech behind a big play from their quarterback and wide receivers. Hey, that's going to do it for this week's look at the Big 12 preview and predictions. Be sure and check back with us at RedRaiders.com on Saturday for a full recap of Texas Tech's game against the Kansas Jayhawks. For the Lubbock Avalanche-Journal, I'm Zach Long.